New spectacles. Not so new woman. Hey BookTube, it's Kim at middle of the book march, and this is my bookish week for Saturday, November 19th. I was prepared this time. I was prepared. So in the US, we're getting ready for Thanksgiving, and for me, that means 4 or 5 days of cleaning because I'm cooking and family is coming here. And so by the time Thanksgiving Day is here, I'm going to be wiped out and frazzled and exhausted. Probably at least 3 or 4 days of yelling at my family. Do this, do that. Whose job was it to clean this? I don't know if anybody else does the same thing, but we always say in my house that people coming over is the best reason to start cleaning. No, I don't live in filth, but you know. Who wants to clean? Honestly, if I had more time and energy, I think I would like keeping a nice, tidy, clean house the majority of the time. Alas, that's never been my life situation. So we do the best we can over here, people. So I finished 3 books last week, had a good week, and I'm going to tell you them maybe even by length. I mean, it just coincidentally, they're set up by length. So let's get started. The first book I read was really charming. It's a little graphic manual called How to Be a Person. The subtitle is 65 Hugely Useful, Super Important Skills to Learn Before You're Grown Up. And it is by Catherine Newman and illustrated by Debbie Fong. It's very charming. This is basically a how to adult manual. And it's very specific, not specific, but it's appropriate for tweens and for teenagers and even especially for neurodivergent young people. It's a great book to, give somebody in a humorous way, but it has some really great advice in there. Everything from how to take care of a pet, how to use your manners in social situations, how to tie a knot, how to, what else is in there? How to change a tire, it's got some things about balancing a checkbook and paying bills. And it's a very short, graphic manual depiction of all of these tips and tricks. And it's wonderful. I actually want to buy a hard copy and have it for my daughter and give that to her just as something cute, but really useful. And it was very charming to read. So and by the way, the 3 books I finished are all nonfiction. So all of them apply for Nonfiction November. This one is Before the Fallout by Diana Preston. And the subtitle of this one is From Marie Curie to Hiroshima. It's exactly what it says. It is basically the discovery of the power of nuclear science and the power of the atom. Now, it literally begins with the Curies and the research that they're doing in France and discovering uranium. They discovered something. Uranium. And I should know this. In 1898, Marie Curie first described a phenomenon she called radioactivity. And it was a half century later, physicists would stand down in the New Mexico desert, slathering themselves with sunscreen. Now, this is exactly what I just said. It's the discovery of radioactivity. It's the discovery of radioactive elements. It's the discovery of certain elements that they added to the periodic table. This is such a scientific book. First let me say, it's an excellent book. The only thing for me is it's one scientist's name after another, after another, after another, after another. There's a lot of content in here about physics and nuclear physics and theoretical physics. If you are a scientist that loves to get into that stuff, it has nothing to do with, animal science and biology, very little to do with chemistry because nuclear physicists look down on chemists, believe it or not, according to this book. So it's interesting to read this already knowing the history of what's going to happen. And probably a good first third of the book is very scientific. A lot of conversations about the scientists that contributed which portion of all of these discoveries about radioactivity. So there was a lot of interest in that. And it also talks a lot about the collaboration between scientists all around the world from all different countries. And it wasn't just one pocket of scientists that kept the information to themselves until later. So all of these discoveries are happening. The book describes a lot of the science of physics and the science of nuclear reaction, of how they discovered splitting the atom, of how they discovered how atomic science works. It's so many discoveries coming very quickly, one after the other. Now, by the time it gets to the stage in history of World War II, Hitler is coming to power. And people all over the world, whether they are in politics or economics or science, are seeing the power that he is wielding in the communities in Germany that turned into the Nazi Party. And so there are people around the world that are watching with fear and anxiety and trepidation as to what's going to happen next. So once he started his attacks on Europe and London and Britain, the Allies started to keep a much tighter eye on him as to how many places is he going to destroy. There's a lot of political discussion about Germany and Russia and England and Italy and France and all of the countries that are allying together. So the American government is, of course, paying attention, and they understand that something needs to be done about Hitler. In the meantime, there's an enormous amount of research into nuclear science. And eventually they discover that they can provoke a nuclear chain reaction that causes a lot of power to be dispersed. And eventually somebody decides, I wonder if we can make a bomb out of this. I wonder what would happen if this type of power was in the center of an explosive device. The minute that thought was said out loud in the scientific community, the Americans decided, you know what, we should look into this because we want to make sure Hitler doesn't get this technology before we develop it. And I think at first, a lot of scientists believed that was their excuse to look into creating the nuclear bomb. Now, I want to now read a book on the Manhattan Project because that was a major portion of talking about the arms race and talking about the science community in the United States. Because eventually, once the scientists realized what power they had control of, all collaboration ceased, especially because of not knowing whether certain European scientists, especially from Germany, were spies for Germany, were spies for Russia. There was so much intrigue involved in the developments and the discoveries. The point that I started to wonder, is anybody going to stop this? We, of course, looking back into time, know what happens with nuclear science and the bomb. But there's questions of, are any of these scientists worried about the moral ramifications of this nuclear weapon? And as far as I can remember and read, there was only one scientist who quit the Manhattan Project based on their moral objections and their conscientious objections to creating a weapon of this magnitude. Eventually, Germany was overthrown before the nuclear bomb was ready, quote unquote ready. However, this was after Pearl Harbor happened, and we were at war with Japan. So Germany had fallen, the Nazi Party was knocked out of power. However, the Americans and the many European countries were still at war with Japan. So the American government decided, we're going to use this to attack Japan. And again, that's the part for me where the book got very chilling, because we all know what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And to read the developments of this project and how quickly it accelerated into what happened in Hiroshima, it got to the point where I was getting very emotional because I knew the devastation that the bomb caused in Japan. And I knew the devastation of what happened when we dropped sticky bombs, which contain napalm. And looking back in time and seeing that from this future perspective, it is very chilling and emotionally devastating to realize how many innocent people lost their lives because of these weapons. There were scientists that when they were testing the bomb in New Mexico, as I said on the back, they were slathering themselves with sunscreen for fear of being burned. They were wearing sunglasses, but the light of the detonations was so powerful, it was brighter than the sun. They also thought, what could happen? Could we ignite the atmosphere? That was an actual question. Will these detonations ignite the hydrogen and oxygen particles in the atmosphere and turn the Earth into a giant fireball? Will we destroy the planet? Will we physically destroy the planet? I never even realized that that could happen. That atmosphere could ignite and just be a worldwide chain reaction of destruction. It is an incredible book. It's very technical, very scientific, narrative nonfiction in parts, but the majority is not. So if you are interested in the topic and you're scientifically minded, it's an excellent book. It is, for me, it was difficult to get through the first third with all of the science material, but after that, it was just so powerful. No pun intended. And the third book I finished is Zero Fail by Carol Leonig. This is the rise and fall of the Secret Service, the rise and fall of the American Secret Service. Wow, wow, wow. Talk about a powerful book. I couldn't believe this. I wasn't expecting this, but the book is set up historically and chronologically according to the president at the time. And so the Secret Service as we know it today really didn't get accelerated until Kennedy was assassinated. What was interesting, what I found out, is Lincoln was assassinated because the one guard that was posted to him left his side at the Ford Theater to get closer to the theater stage and then to go across the street for a beverage. And that is the moment where John Wilkes Booth shot Lincoln. And then there are a few other presidents that were assassinated after that. I believe there were 3 who were assassinated before Kennedy. But it wasn't until JFK in the 60s, and the type of president that he was young, he was extroverted, he wanted to meet the people. However, that's what put him in the direct path of being shot as easily as he was. And the irony is the Secret Service in the very beginning of its inception was part of the Treasury Department in this country. They were started to find counterfeiters. And it's like, what? It wasn't until much later in its history that they were finally under the umbrella of Homeland Security and primarily in charge of guarding the president. It is supposed to be a nonpartisan organization. It clearly is not, based on this book. But the things that struck me the most was the massive amount of similarities between John F. Kennedy and Bill Clinton. Not in a good way. The level of shenanigans, and I say that in a humorous way, but the level of depravity within the White House with JFK and Bill Clinton, and we all are aware, we all know the some of the facts, a lot of the rumors, but this book portrays it and confirms even more than I was aware of. It blew me away in that respect. We get to a point where we see what the actual members, the actual staff of the Secret Service had to deal with, and has to deal with. And the level of incompetence, the level of mismanagement, and the level of technology that we think they have, they may not have, or there may be the majority of people who clearly don't know how to use it. But to read what happened with each presidency, to read what the Secret Service staff thought of the first ladies, of the president's families, to read the accounts of the different places around the world that the Secret Service traveled with the presidents, and how much fraternity behavior that the Secret Service staff, not all of them, but many members of the Secret Service staff engaged in. The level of sexual harassment against female agents, which didn't come until much later in the organization, of course. I was blown away. This is an exceptionally written narrative nonfiction account. And again, there's one name after another, after another, after another of the different agents, the different directors. So it can get bogged down with not being able to keep all of these people straight. But it's fascinating, and I'm so glad I read it. I never would have picked it up had I not first seen it on Heidi's channel, My Reading Life. So Heidi, thank you. This was exceptional. I am so glad that I discovered it through you. So those are the books I finished. What am I currently reading? I'm over halfway through with my reread of The Count of Monte Cristo. I am reading George Eliot, a biography by Gordon Haight. So far, I just started it, and it's charming. It's a wonderful read so far, and I hope it stays that way. And the last book I'm reading is The Exiles by Christina Baker Klein, a novel. This is the story of a young woman in London in the mid-1800s who is shipped off to Australia as a criminal after being falsely accused. So far, so good. I just also started this one. And those are the 3 books I'm currently reading. That's it for me for today. I'm still trying to figure out when I'm going to post a video next week during Thanksgiving week. I think I'm going to, so stay tuned. I think I am. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter video. I'll probably get it up on Wednesday, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you for watching. Post me a comment down below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.